You are listening to an exclusive interview on Bass Musician Magazine. The interview starts now.
Hey everybody, this is Raul for Bass Musician Magazine, and we are at Ilani today. We have the great honor and pleasure of sitting down and chatting with none other than the renowned Stu Cook. Stu.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So great to have a chance to chat with you today. Starting from the beginning, for those of you that don't know Stu, Stu is that bass power behind Creedence Clearwater Revisited, prior Creedence Clearwater Revival.
That's correct.
And they're hitting on some landmark moments. It's been 50 years since Woodstock. The Revisited has been going 25 years. I do want to take a little step back and just kind of get some background. How did you get started in music and on bass, Stu?
Both of my parents were musicians, so there was always instruments. My dad was a horn player, trumpet. My mom played keyboards, and so there was always a piano, always a trumpet laying around. Trumpet was my first instrument in grammar school orchestra, and then I took piano lessons, and then Elvis Presley, and then it was guitars, right? Guitars in sports and girls. Eventually, we had too many guitar players in what evolved into CCR, so I became the bass player.
Nice. Now, before it was CCR, it was...
Same as McCartney.
There you go. Necessity is the mother of invention. Before it was CCR, it was a different name.
The Gollywogs.
The Gollywogs.
Yeah.
There's a name that you're probably pretty happy that
I had almost forgotten it.
It's one of those, I don't know what we were thinking when we decided that name.
Well,
but
our manager at the time actually picked that name for us, and none of us liked it, but we thought he knew more about the business than we did, and we were paying him, so we went along with it till finally we said, this is it. He's going, and so is the name.
There you go. How did you guys get together?
Oh, well, Doug and I were in homeroom in the 7th grade. First day of the 7th grade, I met Doug. About a year later, he was hanging out with John Fogerty, and they were talking about putting a band together. Doug mentioned that he knew a guy who played piano and had a place to rehearse.
Oh.
So I got the gig.
Nice. Nice. And in those early years, the music...
At that time, we were called the Blue Velvets.
Oh, the Blue Velvets, before the Gollywogs, before the...
That was our first band.
Gotcha. And the music, CCR's music is iconic of a time. I grew up on it. Of course, I was a pup because I was started on accordion and then moved over into strings as well, because it just wasn't cool. When the Beatles came out, for you Elvis, for me the Beatles, it had to be something else.
What the world needs is another banjo player, right?
There you go. And so it is the music, it's the voice of a time, and I like to think of it as almost before social media, because now there's so much. It was like the voice of the people, so that we related to what you guys were saying.
Music in general was like that then. I mean, people paid more attention to music. Music, I think, had more of a message, a social message, than it does now. And plus, it was a large physical, an album, a vinyl album, was an actual physical thing that you could hold in your hand, and the artwork and all the label credits and everything. It was a big deal for me when my favorite artist released a new product, because there was that whole thing where you hold the LP and drop the needle in the groove and just start imagining what it was all like, taking it all in. That's not the same experience any longer when you have a download or you're streaming.
Well, and so many times, and you guys had so many great tunes compared to so many other bands of the time that maybe had that one that you would hear and you go, okay, because I can't tell you how many albums I got that I really liked. I got it because I liked this song, and then there was a side B or something. You kind of going, wow, what?
We had a lot of B-side hits. Actually, another band from our era, Three Dog Night.
Oh, Three Dog Night
had a huge number of radio hits and sold a lot of music as well. But having more than one, we didn't really believe it till our third hit, Brad Moon Rising,
Yeah.
that we actually were going to be successful.
Well, and the bass had such a prominent position. One of my favorite tunes, "Fortunate Son," that you're at the beginning and you're driving that thing, and it's just, you don't have to hear more than the first, I don't know, bar and a half before you know. You're like,
Just bass and drums at
That's
the
right.
top of the song, right?
Which Doug you and Doug are still the original members, so that whole
Right.
percussive brotherhood has stayed together.
Well, that's been part of the success of Creedence Clearwater Revisited, is that it feels and sounds like Creedence in a lot of ways. Now, it doesn't have John Fogerty in it; it never has. But we've been able to fool people for 25 years.
Wow. Well, for those of you coming to see this, you'll know. But it's amazing, and I'm so glad, because I know there were some years after all of the big impact. I know there was even tunes I didn't realize were yours, like Susie Q. I'd heard Jose Feliciano's version.
Oh, really?
Yes. And when I was doing a little studying for this, I'm going, oh, Susie Q is a CCR tune. And
Well, yeah, actually, it's a Dale Hawkins song. Dale Hawkins, a singer from Louisiana, had the first hit of that back in the 50s. And James Burton, who played for Ricky Nelson, was in Ricky Nelson's TV band and probably a studio band, and also was in Elvis's band, played guitar on it. The Stones recorded it. We started playing it. Then the Stones recorded it on one of their albums, one of their early albums, and so we stopped playing it. We were already playing a lot of Rolling Stones at the time, so we stopped playing it, and then it came back before we recorded our first album, because we had so many long evenings of nightclubs that we didn't have enough songs, so that's when we turned it into a jam.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And of course, who can forget Tina Turner's Proud Mary?
Right. That came after Ike and Tina Turner opened a series of concerts for us. They were our special guest on tour with us, and they decided to do their own version of Proud Mary.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And with the transition between CCR and Revisited, I know that there was some years, there was a break there. You played with other bands.
Yeah. Doug and I played in the Don Harrison Band. I played in Southern Pacific. It's about the only two, really. Doug and I did a lot of studio recording over the years after Creedence broke up. We had our own production company with a recording studio in a mobile truck. So we did a lot of concerts for other people, just recording their events. The Concord Jazz Festival is one of the big ones that we did yearly. So we stayed in music production when we weren't actually in a band. And we started living in the same region together again in 85. I moved up to Lake Tahoe, where Doug had been living for some years, and we started hanging out more and more and decided that we needed a project to get us out of the house. So that was 25 years ago.
There you go. And with all the music, these 25 years, this is the final tour, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. This is the final revival tour for Revisited. We're going to hang it up for this project at the end of this touring season, which looks like will be at the end of January 2020. But that will be it for us on the road.
Got you. And if people want to know if they want to find out if you're coming to a town near them, what's the best website to go to?
Oh, www.creedence-revisited.com has our full touring schedule, plus band bio, equipment information, the usual.
Lots of
band.
good stuff.
Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned equipment. We need to talk about gear. What gives you your voice?
My voice, my sound comes simply from right here.
There you go.
My right hand. No, there's a lot more to it than that, but my signature is, and is every player's, is their picking hand.
Gotcha.
Anybody can fret the notes, but the statement comes from the playing hand. Currently, and have been for years, playing a Mike Lull PJ5.
Nice.
Mike is in Bellevue, Washington.
A great Northwest luthier.
Yeah, he is by far my favorite guitar builder. In fact, he's building me a bass right now, another bass.
Oh, nice.
So this will be my third lull. The one I have now is a fairly old one, serial number 838. I think it's from the early 2000s, maybe 2005, 2006, and it's just a sweetheart of a bass. For strings, I'm playing MJC Ironworks, nickel-plated steel.
Nice.
Mike Conley is a dear old friend of mine. Met him in the 80s when I started playing 35-inch scale basses. Nobody made an extra long scale set of strings. Mm-hmm. And so I think he was working for Dean Markley at the time, I think, who mainly had all their strings. Most companies have their strings wound by American Strings somewhere in Michigan, I believe. And Mike alternately worked for them, and they worked for Dean. And I believe him to be an expert in the art of string winding materials and how to wind with the correct tension for tone and feel, and for long life as well. And with the MJC Ironworks strings, I get all three. By far the most consistent, easy to play, best sounding strings, and long lasting too. I'm playing a set. Honestly, I put them on last August.
Wow. And
they sound brand new.
Very cool.
They come packaged with this small piece of foam that's impregnated with some sauce. Yes. that Mike has come up with that prevents oxidation of the strings. It puts like a one-cell chemical barrier on all metal, so your parts just don't corrode.
It's amazing.
Strings last longer. Picks, I'm using Dunlop Gator Grip 1.14s, the baby blue ones. Mm-hmm. Amplification is Aguilar, Tonehammer 500 with another TH500 as a spare, although I've never needed it. And my cabinets are two GS 410 Aguilar boxes. I don't think the GS is made any longer, but to me it just sounds a little richer when the bass is played with a pick. Then it has a little more controlled mid-range than some of their other box designs. So that's my favorite. Plus it's got a furry, fuzzy top, which you can take your pick and clean the rough edges off of on it. It's like carpet.
There you go. I don't know if they had that in mind when they made it that way, no, but it's a good use.
Yeah, it takes off the rough edges.
There you go. And what else?
My strap is a Click, okay. A new company, KLIQ, that makes a air cell strap. It's ever so slightly bouncy, but the underside of the strap that contacts your body is multiple air cells, so it just floats on your back, absolutely no dead weight at all.
Nice. Well, as we age, weight of the instrument turns into a real issue and a concern.
Mike made the 5-string 8.5 pounds, which is pretty light for a Fender style 5-string. Most of them weigh in at 10 or 11 pounds from Fender. Peterson tuning pedal, Wren and Cuff distortion, a pickle pie B distortion, MXR envelope, and MXR deluxe chorus. I use a Thumpinator, which is a little gadget that comes from the United Kingdom, which cuts off very sharply all frequencies below 28 cycles per second, so really cleans up the bottom. The speakers don't work excessively. But my secret weapon, my absolute must-have pedal, is a Origin Effects compact bass compressor. They're modeled after the Uri 1176. It really punches the sound up, and I consider it key to helping me get something inspiring. To hear myself exactly the way that I'd always wanted to hear it.
Gotcha.
This is the pedal.
Wow. And one of the important things that I think with all live performances is that not only you, but the audience gets to feel it in their chest. That's usually where you're looking to find that sweet spot.
If they're not paying attention, I'll hit something on the low B string.
Wake them up.
Yeah. See if it doesn't set them to the restroom.
There you go. Any other parts of your gear, anything special that you're using?
My wireless is all Sennheiser.
Okay.
I have a wireless for the bass. I think it's a 500 series, and then I think a 300 series for in-ear monitoring. For my in-ear buds, I use Westone Pro 30s. That's a triple driver, low, mid, and high. They have more expensive models, but I doubt my ears could tell the difference anymore. But they're sealed, but I don't use custom molds. I just use the foamy molds that that fill up your ear channel. That's good enough. Just give me some good isolation.
Nice.
So, and I have a great monitor mixer that gives me exactly the sound I need to get some inspiration out of what everybody else is doing.
Great. That always helps.
Yeah, it sure does.
And looking ahead, with this being the final tour, what's in the future for you? What are your plans?
Well, initially I'm going to do a little more scuba diving, work on my golf game, maybe a little kayaking. We have 4 grandkids now, so we'd like to see more of them. I still got some personal travel to do to round out my cultural quest for more information about the rest of the world. And then been back to France and Italy, and every now and then we have a second home in Honduras, which
Roatan, if I'm not
Roatan
mistaken.
Island, yeah.
Yes.
And so we're going to be spending more time down there. That's mostly where we dive, but there's also a nice golf course there and a lot to do.
Roatan, for those that don't know it, was a favorite hiding spot of the pirates.
That's right.
You could stay away from the Armada and everybody else and hang low in Roatan, so it's a nice place.
That's where the pirates vacationed.
Yes.
In the off season. It's in the far western Caribbean where the Spanish Armada rarely ever went. The island has many, many hidden bays and lagoons where even tall-masted ships could hide out. They wouldn't be seen from the open waters, but there was plenty of places where they could be hidden inside these bays. So there's quite a history in that part of the Caribbean of Henry Morgan and all of the British used those guys when they weren't after them themselves. They were like militias. So the British encouraged them to go after the Spaniards. It was.
There was a game going on in the Caribbean.
Yeah, it was an early form of politics and diplomacy.
There we go. Well, it sounds like a fabulous plan. We're really excited about the show. Folks, make sure that you check the website and catch the show. Now is the time. Coming to a venue near you. Stu, we wish you the greatest success. We're looking forward to tonight's show and some well-deserved travel time and time off and diving and just enjoying the grandchildren. Are there any bass players in the kids?
Not yet. One of my granddaughters wants to play guitar, and one of my grandsons is quite interested in everything musical: guitar, bass, drums, anything that makes music. He likes to sing.
Nice.
So he's gonna. I think he might get the bug.
There you go. Well, you can always hope, because I always worry about who's going to play my bass after I am no longer playing it, and I hope it's my grandkid. So on that note, again, you've seen him here, Stu Cook, Creedence Clearwater Revisited, coming to you on Bass Musician Magazine.
Thanks for bassing out with us here on bassmusicianmagazine.com.